Yeehaw! It's time for the Texans Squad, sponsored by Game Time. Everything Houston Texans, every week. Bringing you the big hits, game-changing plays, and all the action straight from the Lone Star State. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Saddle up and squad up. It's the Texans Squad Show, starting now.
Well, it is the Squad Show. Sorry, I had a bunch of stuff going off in my ear all of a sudden. I had two things playing at once, but we're here for the Squad Show on a Friday night. We appreciate you guys watching live, watching later on, or listening wherever you get your podcast on the Locked On Texans feed, the number one source for Texans information with our man John Hickman, who does the daily podcast down there. I am Michael Connor. That's Stan Norfleet. John Hickman, as I mentioned, and Iisha Morrison. We're with you here again tonight. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, Squad. OTAs are
Yeehaw.
Twins.
Yeehaw. Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. Do you guys use yeehaw in your vocabulary?
No. And we got to stop with that's Texas. Like, that may be Armadillo. That may be El Paso. But it is not Houston, Texas.
I don't know. I've spent a lot of time in West Texas. I've never heard anybody say it out there either.
Yeah, man.
Don't know. I was at the rodeo. I went to African American Heritage Night. I heard yeehaw.
The rodeo's for show, man. That's for people to go out there and show out.
I heard a lot of things. Saw some things too. But nonetheless, it can't.
Well, there's one thing for sure is that they do the rodeo where the Texans play football. For how long? Who knows? That's a subject for another day, whenever that conversation comes up. We've got a lot to get into tonight. We're going to talk some wide receivers at some point. We're going to talk about rookies. What a shock. We're going to talk about mini camps the end of OTAs. And then, of course, hey, what do you know? CJ Stroud, I'm sure, will come up at some point tonight as well. But let's start off tonight, guys, with the conversation on – we kind of talked about this, I think it was in the first show a little bit, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper on this subject with the Houston Texans in 2025. Now, look, they play in a tough conference. I think we can all agree on that. You've got the Kansas City Chiefs, who are a dynasty. You've got the Baltimore Ravens, who are pretty darn fantastic. You have, I would assume, a Cincinnati Bengals team that's going to bounce back, Buffalo Bills. You got to give some sort of respect to the Chargers out on the West Coast as well. These are tough teams to get through consistently. They are part of that group of tough teams. But my question to start our night tonight, who is the Texans' number one op in 2025? And now you could go anywhere with this. I'm not asking you for a team. If you think it's a team, then sure, it's a team. Maybe it's an individual player, a certain coach, whatever you think is the number one op to the Texans taking the step to the next step, I should say, this year. Who do you think it is? Stan, we'll start off with you tonight.
Well, I'm going to combine two individuals because they're both on the coaching staff in the first years of their respective position. I'm talking offensive coordinator and play caller Nick Caley and Cole Popovich, who now is the head man in the offensive line meeting room. I'll get into some breakdown here in just a little bit, but I'll introduce that thought with a stat. Now, this came courtesy of another publication, SI.com's Connor Orr, 100 bold predictions for the 25 season. His number 13, NFL teams will pass the football less in 2025. He goes into some very detailed breakdown. For the first time since 2008, the passing attempts per game by each team was under 33 attempts. CJ Stroud came in at 31 attempts. So he was below the average. What that tells me, and I'll speak more to that in a different segment, this offensive line we've discussed, the quarterback and his injury we've discussed, the wide receivers we've discussed. This is about fixing this offensive line in the running game. If you think about what happened across the state of the league, Saquon Barkley and the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, what Derrick Henry was in Baltimore, Josh Jacobs in Green Bay, Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. 3 of the 4 teams that played in championship weekend were 3 of the 4 teams among the top of rushing yards per game. Yeah. Kansas City, the lone outlier because of Patrick Mahomes and, of course, Andy Reid. So it's not just protecting the passer. I would say we actually need to pivot the conversation and talk more about this coaching staff, this gap run scheme, these big offensive linemen, Nick Caley, Cole Popovich. You got to be able to run the ball with Joe Mixon, maybe Dameon Pierce. We'll talk some more about Woody Marks and those backs.
Iisha, for you in 2025, who's going to hold the Texans back from taking that step?
I mean, honestly, I don't think I can go against what Stan said. It's all about this offensive line and this run game. And honestly, don't start with me, Stan. But even to add on to the conversation of how the NFL, is seeing an uptick in running the ball again, this is also due to the trend. I know, John, you can attest to it, is defenses have gotten smaller. A lot of defenses are, these linebackers and stuff, they're lighter in the butt. A lot of teams are, opting to have a more 3-techie type defensive tackle than a one
BBs out there.
Yeah, the one tech is honestly almost a luxury at this point, especially the veteran kind. Defenses have gotten lighter, and we saw an uptick in dime and nickel as well in the NFL. And so with the result of that, then you see the other side of it is, this is what happens in football, it's trends. So they changed to, okay, well, y'all want to be light in the butt. Cool, we're going to run the ball at you, and you're not going to be able to stop it because you don't have the size to do it. So, this is just, again, like attest to some of the trends in football right now. And I agree with you, Stan, is being able to run the ball, control tempo, and those things are things that are coming back in style, but also having some explosiveness on the outside. So I do agree that I think a lot of this is, as we know, contingent on this offensive line and your ability to run the ball. Defenses are getting better. The Texans have one of the best defenses. And if you can only do one, you're kind of dead in the water on the offensive side.
John, for you?
MC, can you ask that question one more time?
John!
Who is the Texans' number one op to taking that step forward in 2025?
Okay. Who's the ops? So thank God Houston is not playing in New York this year, so it won't be MetLife Stadium.
Oh, thank God.
Thank God.
Yeah, they can't handle that.
But honestly, it's the trifecta. It's 100% the offense. You look at the woes from last season. Again, the Houston Texans were probably in the most one-score games last season. And the games that mattered the most, they lost against Green Bay, they lost against Detroit, or some of those critical primetime games, or some of those games against the better upper echelon teams in the NFL. Defense did all they could do. It was the offense, specifically in the third quarters, coming out flat, going, constantly punting. So in the offseason, what did they do? They revamped it, right? That's what everybody wanted to see. They revamped it from the offensive line perspective. They revamped it from the coaching perspective. But with their revamps, you didn't bring in, I'm speaking to the Houston Texans, no eye-popping name was brought in. A first-time offensive coordinator. I mean, I can talk about what I presume the offense will look like. And Stan, shout out to you, man, because you brought up a great point that I can't wait to talk more about. It ain't all about protecting CJ. I think over 50% of Joe Mixon runs in 2024, he was hit either at the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. Joe Mixon is just so cold, he can make that work. And then he's been playing behind a bad offensive line his whole career. But Joe Mixon getting up in age. I think the plan with Woody Marks and how Houston is going about putting together their running back unit is to kind of alleviate some of those carries early on in the season for Joe Mixon. So that's why right guard and left guard are so important this year. Who's going to be those guys in center? Who's going to be the guys on the inside anchoring? So it's really all about getting the offense to a place where they are respectable. I've said it on the show, just above average. Don't even need to be top 10. You could be at 13. You could be 12. You could be 11. But they got to be able to put up points. They got to be able to do their defense solid, like the defense did for them all year last season, and be able to go out there and score points and be more efficient in the red zone and be more efficient on first down play calling and not get hit in the backfield early on and not have to go third and long so much. They got to be a better offense. And if they are not a better offense, no matter what I think about Nick Caley, Cole Popovich, and their first stint with the Houston Texans, none of it's going to matter. So they have to be better. And I think everybody can agree on that from all phases, running, protecting the quarterback, and from a quarterback perspective, getting the ball out to your receivers for catchable passes so they can run with the ball and get upfield.
Yeah.
You know what's scary to me with this Texans team this year, guys, is that we have all these assumptions the number one assumption is that they're going to be great on defense. What happens if they aren't? What happens if you have a bunch of injuries pile up all of a sudden? Because this is football, right? We're going to go to training camp. They're going to do preseason. I know that they're not going to run a lot of guys like I'd imagine like the likes of Derek Stingley and stuff. They're not going to get a ton of run in preseason, but like you could be week one and you can go out in the first series and lose multiple players. Knock on some wood somewhere that it doesn't happen. But like, what happens if that's the case? What happens if the defense isn't as good as we expect it to be?
That's a great question.
What does this team look like?
But so are we going to be worried about losing the names of the defense? Because what I will say is I kind of have a lot of faith in DeMeco to be able to coach up guys and their defensive coaching staff with how they create pressure up front. Pressure up front will alleviate a lot of issues on the back end of the defense. Where I would get worried is going to, a moment where, man, both Daniil and Will is out. That'd be the scariest thing for this defense, right? And again, knock on wood. But those guys on the defensive side of the ball, the coaching staff, they coach them up. They got some good depth, right? Not a lot of – is there a rookie on the defense that'll be presumed starter?
No.
Kalen year 2, Stingley all-pro going. There's no full of vets, right? Experience is there, even with the depth of the defense. You got a lot of vets. Like the only rookie, Jalen Reed out of Penn State, Jalen Smith, who may start to get some more opportunity now with Darby retiring, but I'm not really worried about the defense because they got a next man up mentality, and it comes with experience compared to the offense. They can have the next man up mentality, but is the experience there?
Yeah. On the defensive side, I guess when you talk about the depth, I mean, obviously, I think the system will work for itself. I think that's when coaching comes in as well. Obviously, you can't replace talent. And that worst case scenario also, too, would that put any pressure on the offense, too? I think it is time for the defense to be rewarded. This is something you see up in Cleveland as well. Is that their defense has been one of the better defenses in the league for a while, and that offense is so bad that it can't cover it. So how long would it cover it? And I think that there is a sense of urgency with this offense. I feel like that they understand that they cannot squander this defensive unit because it could change, like you said, the next year, the next season, whatever the case may be. So I don't want to think like that. That's a fantastic question, Michael. But I do think if that were the case, then what type of season you gonna have at that point?
Well, that's why champions get crowned in the National Football League, because the really elite teams, your Kansas Cities, your Phillies, your Baltimores, they overcome. I think about, John, what you said about the amount of one-score games that the Texans ended up on the wrong side of a year ago. Who led the league in one-score victories? That would be the Kansas City Chiefs. They are able to overcome. So, because not every roster looks like Phillies. I think they have the best roster in pro football. The Texans, according to PFF and some other people, are not too far beyond. I think Texans are probably on paper probably a top 10 roster in the league, top third of the league for sure. So that at least gives you a fighting chance. We all know that specifically with the defensive side of the ball, you have depth. And I think really it's the interior. They don't have a household name on the interior. I thought it was significant bringing back Folu Fadakasi and putting him in there. He's the biggest anchor, the rock of that line, if you will.
Good run stopper.
Bringing back Sheldon Rankins. He got away for a year. Bringing him back into the fold, I think, will pay huge dividends. You know what you have on your outside there in Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil. Darrell Taylor will be an addition as well, coming over from Chicago, in the second year with Danico Autry. It's not the defense that bothers me. And I understand your question. I expect Danico and the depth. If there was an area of concern on defense, it would be, all right, Azeez Al-Shaya. He's in the crosshairs of the league, given the way that he plays the game. Christian Harris, say that he's on pace to be able to return. Will he look like the Christian Harris we saw at the end of the 2023 postseason for the Texans? Can Henry To'o, can he take the next step? So I really look at that linebacking core. EJ Speed, how will he translate into that unit? Again, it's not the special teams. Frank Ross is going to coach that bunch up. I'm not real concerned about them. To me, this is about the offense. And just a nugget going back to, me saying that I think it's Nick Caley and Cole Popovich in terms of the season will hinge on their coaching and the development of some young guys, specifically on that offensive line. Let's not forget now, this team was awful on first down a year ago. Yep. They were arguably the worst team in the league.
I had a lot of 2nd and 12s.
Yeah, the personnel groupings, the ability trying to run the ball in the stack boxes and things of that nature, the predictability must be changed and be better in 2025. And I'll come back to you with this one, MC. Now that we know CJ Stroud's shoulder, they can't tell us it's nothing, right? Clearly it's something. We can debate the various degrees of something. But if you don't have the talent offensively of everyone else, and if your defense can be opportunistic and get you the ball back, then I think the key is being able to run the football and shrink the game. Limit possessions for the opposing offense. You play the clock, right? You're playing against the clock. You grind out first downs. And I think, again, Joe Mixon and those backs, we'll get to those guys here more momentarily. So that's just what I see from how those coaches can impact the outcome of this game, even in case of injury.
As Stan said, we'll talk about the running game because it is going to be an important thing once again for this Texans team in 2025. That's next year in the Locked On Texans Squad Show. Right now, though, let me tell you guys about managing your money. You ever take a look at that bank account and wonder, hey, where'd all my money go between shopping out or dining out, shopping online, entertainment? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Everything in one app. It also makes managing money with your partner easier. Look, you gotta sit down and you gotta have it all planned out sometimes together. You can track those shared and personal accounts, set goals, stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Texans Squad Show here on a Friday evening. Thank you for joining us if you're watching live. If you're watching later on, we appreciate you as well. Make sure you're hitting subscribe to this YouTube channel if you're here. Of course, you can get this show in the audio version anywhere that you get your podcast. Go and search for Locked On Texans. You'll have this show there. You'll also have John's Daily Show, the Locked On Texans podcast. We'll get into some of the rookie diaries and everything that he's got going on later on in the show tonight. So we've talked about who's going to be the biggest op for the Texans this year. The number one op is going to be CJ's health. If, CJ doesn't get healthy, we all know that. Whatever's going on there, Stan, you're right. If nothing was going on, probably would have heard from CJ in the media already or something. But, whatever. Let's talk about the running game, though, because the running game is vital to this team. Talked about it earlier, John. You brought it up. I guess we can start here with you on this one. And then we'll get to Stan's point. Joe Mixon last year got nailed in the backfield all the time. All the time. But the guy was so darn good. And I thought he just brought a real toughness to this team and a different mentality. I loved – now, look, I'm not there. You guys, John, Stan, y'all been down there more. They felt like they got a different level of leadership on that offensive side of the football with Joe Mixon last year. I'm still excited to see him go, but he is longer in the tooth. What is he, like 29 years old now?
He'll be 29 during the season, 29 in July.
Those kind of things catch up to you eventually. All the miles on the tires, those are going to catch up to you. They draft Woody Marks. Dameon Pierce is still around. How do we feel about the Texans running game coming into 2025?
I don't know, man. This is probably going to be one of those honest shows. One thing about it is I do feel good about Joe Mixon. If he's healthy, if he's able to play 14, 15 games, I'm going to always feel good about Joe Mixon. And I think for Texan fans, they should find peace in Joe Mixon was he was a great player for Houston last year, despite circumstances. And so for Houston, Nick Caley was brought over to L.A. because at the time, McVay, huge Kyle Shanahan tree coach. But Nick Caley was brought over to kind of move away from the zone run scheme. And that allowed for players like Kyron Williams to have a big year with the Rams. Before Kyron Williams, it was
Cam Akers was in that group.
Cam Akers was in that bunch. So like running backs are able to be productive, and not only be productive, but 4.5 yards per pop. 4.3 yards per pop, to where you're looking up and down third and 5 is, now for Houston could be 3rd and 2. And that's what the Houston Texans need, more favorable third down opportunities. I would say I think it's okay to feel comfortable about the run game because, even with Larry Tunsil last year, that unit wasn't one of the better run blocking teams in the NFL. And Larry Tunsil was a Pro Bowler. So the thought process is, let's get some of these guys in here that are a little bit tough, take a little bit more pride in being just straight nasty. This is not a shot at no player for the Houston Texans. Just speaking towards what D'Amico in the offseason looked for, what he verbally said he wants, and that's more aggressive offensive linemen that can be a little bit nastier. That will help the run game out. But I think having a vet like Joe Mixon, guys, and I'm going to give it back over to you, but having a vet like Joe Mixon, having an offensive coordinator and an offensive line coach who has continuity with one another, understand that we got to make the distance to success a little bit shorter. Sometimes on those zone runs, where that lineman have to get, if that's not an athletic lineman, they're going to have trouble with that. Yeah. So just kind of shortening it, allowing it to be a little bit more north and south, and from there we should see easier runs from Joe Mixon, Woody Marks, Dameon Pierce, who I think this scheme will help out Dameon Pierce probably the most, which will in the end help the Houston Texans offense.
Before we let Stan get on his preaching to us here just in a second, Stan's going to give us something, and then we're probably all going to fight, and everybody's going to think we hate each other again. No, I'm kidding. Iisha, your thoughts on the Texans running situation heading into the season?
Well, I guess what my question is, are they transitioning to a outside zone heavy team, or are they transitioning away from it?
So what we've heard from Nick Caley is it ain't gonna be one scheme, it ain't gonna be this scheme, it's gonna be our scheme. That's directly from Nick Caley. Specifically, he said the Houston Texans scheme.
Predicated on the personnel that's available to him at that moment.
And I think when you look at what the Houston Texans have, I would say the amount of zone runs that Houston will see this year won't be the amount from last season.
I agree with that.
Okay. Yeah, because it sounds like they want to somewhat, not like you said, they're not completely transitioning away from it, but they're being conscious of what their personnel can do now. Yeah, we saw the Rams with Nick Caley coming in, have some success. That was that Todd Gurley era. Some of the things they were able to do, obviously using him as he did a lot of receiver-esque things. So I guess that would be my question to y'all. Well, I got two. With your tackles in particular, are your tackles capable? Like, I know you were just talking about, John, kind of shortening the field, or however you decide, being more north, south to north to south, instead of being, east to west. Do you guys think that the tackles are capable of doing that? Number one. And number two, is Joe Mixon going to be more in a receiving role or have more receiving capabilities in this scheme, you think? And I'm talking about screen game. I'm talking about, that type of stuff. Or are you not going to see that as much in this
game? You want to kick it off?
Yeah, I think the offensive line, as we see it right now, Cam Robinson is a massive man. You know what I mean? Like that's just nature of what it is. You talk about that right side, Blake Fisher, apparently from the reports, his body, looks a lot more tight, in shape, had a little baby weight coming over from Notre Dame in the second round last year. So I think when you look at Laken Tomlinson is a big man. Trent Brown, if he's able to return from injury, is a big man. So I think at the end of the day, in the game of football, Vince Lombardi used to say, I'm reminded of this quote, football is a simple game. It's just not easy to do. Like at some point, you just get a culmination of my guys are simply bigger than your dudes. Okay. And then we come up with all these fancy terms and schemes. So I think by sheer size and dimension, the sheer scale of the offensive line. Now, you lose some athleticism, which leads us to believe that outside zone may dissipate. Arante Ursery, good call in our comments by Sideline Sarah. Arante Ursery, they call him Tay. He's another very large man that also excels in that run game. I also think, and this ties to the point that we started the show with, teams are passing the ball fewer attempts per game than they have for the first time since 2008. That's because more things can go wrong than right on a pass play.
Shout out to Cover 2, by the way.
Say that again, John.
Shout out to Cover 2, making his way back into the league.
Can I just say from a viewing standpoint, boo tomato for me? I just want to watch them throw the football, but that's me being an air raid guy. I watched Texas Tech football my entire life. Give me some.
Your entire life. Well, bless your heart.
Yeah, I know.
I appreciate the level of physicality in the run game. You know what I mean? Like at a certain point, now that's coming from a former edge defender in my own right, having gone up against my share of guys that excelled and started on the next level, and some of the household names you're familiar with. Like, I just appreciate the barbaric nature of the game. This isn't a contact sport. The NFL is a collision sport, as well as college football at the highest level. So I give those men their due respect. But when you talk about, again, protecting CJ's arm, it's a long season. He's dealt with shoulder problems before. Giving those young wide receivers an opportunity to get integrated into life in the National Football League. Lessening the opportunities. Every time you drop back, you are susceptible to your quarterback getting knocked out, the ball being picked off, strip sack, fumble. Just more things can go wrong on a pass play than a run play. So I'm an advocate for that. Iisha, you asked in your second question about the versatility of Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon made the Pro Bowl last year because he was absolutely fantastic, and he proved to be a 3-down back yet again. Joe Mixon, I got some numbers here. Where is Joe? 15th in rushing yards, 1,016 yards, average 4.1 yards per carry. The 11 rushing touchdowns I thought were absolutely critical, and that's while missing 3 games because of the illegal hip drop tackle that they didn't throw a flag on in the Chicago Bears game. So he missed weeks 3, 4, and 5. Had he not, he would have started all 17 games for a back-to-back season. So Joe's averaging about 3 games missed per year over the course of the last 5 seasons or so. But I don't have any issue with Joe Mixon in there. Again, he'll turn 29 in July. He has his money. So I think, and then if the postseason, let me add that to boot. If the postseason is any indication of what we can expect with Joe, if they don't have Joe Mixon in that Kansas City game, it's a wrap. Joe Mixon was literally the only offense on the field wearing, battle red, Liberty blue, deep steel blue and Liberty white. Joe Mixon in the postseason in 2 games, 194 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. So I'm not worried about Joe. I do want to come back to some of the other backs on the roster, but if somebody wants to jump in, by all means.
And I will say, I think around that time, I thought that we saw a different approach with the running plays. I thought it was very much so, let's just get Joe running with a head of steam. And the number that you said that was impressive to me, it wasn't 194 yards. Like, that's impressive. It's the yards per carry for Joe. When he got going, but the 5.3 in the postseason?
4.5 in the postseason.
4.5. So, like, that's the number where for Houston, that when they look at what their goals are for the season this year offensively, it should be a number like yards per carry. We don't want to get under this threshold because if we stay at this threshold, then we are able to expand our playbook once those guys get extremely comfortable. Like, the plays will be looking, a little bit easier, but, better play calls. And it will allow for the Houston Texans to control the game. Defensively, they were able to control the games last year. Like, Jared Goff 5 interceptions. They lost that game because in the second
they held Josh Allen. MVP Josh Allen was held to his worst game of the 24th
season. So, like, defensively, they can control the game. Offensively, what we noticed last year, the biggest trend was Houston was not able to function well when those explosive plays were taken away. So for 2025, let's just make sure we are able to control the clock, not milk the clock, but control it, have good yards per catch, and then from there start picking our spots because we're not jeopardized by 3rd and 8s. We're not jeopardized by 2nd and 13s. Yeah, it's 3rd and 3. We got 12 plays we can go that instead of 3rd and 9. We all got to go deep. And then you got 2 in-breaking routes on the outside. They're running into each other. So, like, it's all about controlling the game for this offense. And I think they're going to look at the analytics and say, when CJ was operating in 3rd and 3, look at how efficient he was. When Joe Mixon was able to get the ball on this style of play, look at how efficient the running game was. And it's all that matters for the Houston Texans.
I want to add, if I could, MC, before we break on it, I come back to Nick Caley and Cole Popovich.
Sorry, engineer. I'm sorry to remind y'all about the Detroit game.
You were wrong for that.
I'm sorry.
I also want to see, we got to do something like Joe Mixon has been nicked up. He does need to come out of the game. You got to have somebody else to go in there and be productive. Dameon Pierce was 2nd last year in this team in carries. Dameon Pierce had 40 carries, 40 attempts for 293 yards in 11 games played, 0 starts. So that means when Joe went out, here came Dare. Dare only had, I think, 20 carries for the season, and I'm going off the top of my dome here. So this team has a running back 2 concern, and I'm curious how Cole Popovich and Nick Caley, what will they do to orchestrate and to strategize to put the backs that are in the rotation in the advantageous position to give Mixon a blow, or should he unfortunately go down for a game or 2, you still don't put all of that pressure back on CJ Stroud. Dameon Pierce, 11 games, I mentioned no starts, and that was his 293 yards. If you remember, he had that one 92-yard long run, 92-yard long run versus, I forget who it was, but like, essentially what I'm asking is, can this coaching staff offensively, can you fix Dameon Pierce? Clearly he's going to be motivated. He's in a contract year. He mentioned how Bobby Slowick's system, it took him a year just to get his bearings together. Hopefully they can not simplify it in terms of that Dameon Pierce is inept, but simplify it in terms of allowing him to have the confidence to go be the player that we saw his rookie and his 2nd year in the National Football League when he had all those angry runs. The other person that I'll brag on, since I'm going to say something nice about these rookies, Woody Marks. We talk so much, Iisha, about Woody Marks and his ability to receive the football. Yes, he played in the Big Ten. Yes, he played in Southern California. Funny how that works.
He played the Big Ten for 1 year.
Drafted in the 4th round this year. The thing that gets overlooked, go look at what he did in the Big Ten compared to all the other rushers in the 2nd best conference in the country. Over 1,100 yards, average 94 yards a game, 5.72 yards per carry, and 9 touchdowns rushing. He averaged, outside of the rushing touchdowns, he was in the top 5 in all of those statistical categories. So as much as we brag about what Woody Marks can be in the receiving game, I think he could be a compliment to Joe Mixon in the run game if they aren't able to fix Dameon Pierce. And Dare is just somewhat limited in ability, though he is versatile. We know what he adds on special teams.
Now that's a good point. I will say, were you guys surprised that the Texans didn't get a running back in this draft, especially this draft in particular?
Once it looked like they was going to hold on to DP, it didn't surprise me.
What about you, John?
Was I surprised that they did not?
That they double dipped at receiver and then didn't touch running back, especially with the amount of depth that was in this class. Especially,
they drafted Woody Marks this year.
Yeah. My bad. I'm talking about them going earlier. I expected for them to do that.
No, I wasn't surprised. I was not surprised. So with Dameon Pierce, that's a weird situation, and I know for the 2024 season, when me and Cody was hosting the show, we were called Dameon Pierce haters, and that wasn't the case. We just called it what it was. He was struggling. I would say for 2024, Dameon Pierce didn't get the opportunity to relieve Joe Mixon like I thought he should.
Remember D'Amico used to talk about him. He highlighted Dameon Pierce, and he said kickoff return.
Yeah, he did.
That became his value, which is crazy.
And we would I can take it a step further. During last year's preseason time, during training camp, it was, Dameon Pierce not getting carries. And it was the question of, was he going to get cut? Could Houston upgrade? He was on the bubble. And it was always, we're fine with Dameon Pierce. We like what he does. The typical D'Amico stuff. But then throughout the year, he's not getting the carries. When Dameon Pierce, on 2 occasions, had 5 or more carries, 8 yards per carry. I think for the year, it was 7.3 yards per carry altogether. Shout out to Brendan Hollum in the chat. But for Pierce, it's more so of the coaching staff having to say, we got to take some of this off of Joe Mixon. And we got to give the next best option a chance. Can Pierce beat out Woody Marks? He's a vet. This will be his 4th year. I would say he may have an advantage.
They're different.
Can Woody Marks beat out?
But for the competition, can he solidify his RB2 role?
Okay, so we found something to keep an eye on, because I was that's the reason why I framed it the way I did, was because I felt like from what I saw from Dameon Pierce last year, I mean, obviously I'm the outside looking in, and I remember him being a problem for the other team in Texas. I remember how he wears on you. But I think maybe, to your point, John, maybe it was obviously the offensive line, but it was the play calling and whatever that didn't favor him.
They didn't trust.
I think it was Sloak, and I also think there was a lack of trust there. And so,
okay, that makes sense.
To take it a step further, one of the issues with Bobby Sloak in 2024 specifically, not being able to divert from his plans, like the script. Stan, about the script conversation that was big out here. And so Dameon Pierce's first couple carries, whenever he got it, could have been a zone run, and maybe he didn't work out or whatever. But if it wasn't if for Sloak, it felt like if he wasn't comfortable with it because that's what he wanted to do, then there wasn't a lot of playing towards the strength of the player, which is why a lot of these guys are raving about Nick Caley right now, because that's all we hear about. That's all he's talked about, playing towards the strength of the players. And so for Dameon, you just got to go run the ball this year. You got to just go north to south, keep it simple, not a lot of thinking. That was a problem in 2023 for him.
With slow
and solidify his RB2 role.
I also want to add, before we pivot out this running back conversation, just real quick, Dameon Pierce, at some point, Dameon Pierce is a volume back. Some guys just need, give me 10 touches, give me 12 touches, give me 15 touches. Like, the first couple may be ugly, or I may get for a 2-yard loss on carry number 9. But by the time we get to the end of the 15, you will have your 80, 90, 100 yards, and maybe even a score. Clearly, Dameon Pierce in the kick return game and lining up behind the quarterback, clearly he has enough home run speed and ability still in the tank. Now, you had to get his body together, got his mind right. So I will be very impressed if Cole Popovich on that offensive line and Nick Caley, the new OC, can find a way to have more of a 1-2 punch, and so we can have some confidence in spelling Joe Mixon at the running back spot. And then will Woody Marks prove himself, not just as a receiver and a runner, but you know how we feel about rookies. NFL vets hate rookies at the running back spot because you're responsible for pass protection. Don't get my man CJ hurt.
Oh, man.
It's going to be interesting to see if they can get that 1-2 punch going, like you said, Stan. They're also going to need a 1-2 punch at the receiver spot. Let's talk a little bit about one of these guys that's not getting any love, it seems, next year on the Locked On Texans Squad Show. It's a squad show on a Friday. Michael Connor, Stan Norfleet, John Hickman, Iisha Morrison with you today as we are discussing the Houston Texans. As OTAs are over, minicamp is up next, and then it's a little bit of a break before we get some action and shorts and T-shirts and then pads finally, eventually, in training camp, and then preseason football. I don't know about y'all. I miss football. I love – Stan knows very much because he's worked with me for a long time. I very much love baseball. But I just miss football. Like, I just miss sitting around on a Sunday and watching
football. In an NFL city, football just changes the climate of day-to-day life. Whether you like wherever you work, whatever you got going on, the casual fan, there's just something about when you know there's especially a home game this weekend and your team is competitive, it's just a sense of euphoria that just permeates throughout the course of the season.
And it changes your whole mood.
No, I miss football.
You if you come into the office on a Monday, everybody hates Mondays, but let them Texans kick off their season with a dub against the Rams.
You ready to go?
They go to work on Monday talking crazy.
Yeah.
They club out, they may have Texan fans, with them fans that they may get to just randomly. We need football back.
I peruse around the city a little bit from a social standpoint. And last year, the Detroit Lions, they had a Houston takeover that was organized in Michigan. A lot of those people came down. So it's just new faces. You get to talk some bleak at the local watering spots. Chicago did a Houston takeover as well. So,
I took part in the I took part in the Texans takeover up in Dallas. That was nice. That stadium was very loud for the Texans. Very loud. It was very loud.
I was sprinkling in a little DFW in my life every now and again. In fact, I'm about due for a DFW trip.
Oh my goodness!
It's a shame they can't play. It's a shame they can't play every year. I would love that.
I think it needs to be like a regular thing. But I definitely miss the football sounds. I miss hearing the songs.
Everything about it. And what I miss as well is watching the Texans. Yeah, I know.
Wait a minute. Let's hear that one more. Let's hear those vocals one more time.
Y'all clowning.
Something like
Y'all clowning.
Yeah, I miss.
It's gonna sound good.
No, football season is a vibe. It's clear. Everybody.
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it.
So will the Texans, look how I'm going to transition here. Will the Texans offense be a vibe with their number 2 receiver? And there's no telling which guy is going to walk away from the end of the season being the number 2 receiver. But we've done all this talk about the rookies. Okay. And we've casually mentioned this guy that they went and traded for. But Christian Kirk is here. This is a guy that's had some really good seasons in the past. Now he's towards the back end of his career. I think we could all probably agree on that. But are we not giving him enough love for what he's done and what he could bring to this offense?
I don't think we have, guys. And I think
I don't.
I'm not going to necessarily say us. I think Texans media all together, that could be partially due to, when teams get rookies, we're excited for rookies. But also, on the back end of his career, a couple of injuries that kept him out the last couple of seasons. He's lost his steps. He's had some drop issues. Christian Kirk was asked about, his thoughts on Nick Caley. He said this offense is dynamic. But one thing that stood out to me was a lot of motions, a lot of pre-snap adjustments for the defense to have to deal with. And I think for a player of his age, who I don't trust to go out there, especially not outside, to go just flat out beat somebody. You want to get him motioned out. You want to move him around to give him the ability to kind of just have some free catches. Nothing hard, easy work. So we haven't talked about Christian Kirk, and we haven't talked about what his impact could be for this offense team altogether.
I mean, you talking about we talked about it earlier in the show. You talking about that cover 2. Hey, that mean the middle field gonna be open. That mean the middle field gonna be welcome for, it's gonna be open for business. And Christian Kirk is somebody that I've had some respect for quite some time. Also, too, because he has played in some complex offenses, like you were saying, John. Like I think he's a guy that will be able to pick up on the playbook and understand it. And listening to his pressers, it sounds like he's already, grasping it and everything. But yeah, we've talked about maneuvering the slot. We talked about the benefits of being able to maneuver the slot, and to have a veteran there that's sound, that knows how to sit in the middle of a zone, that's comfortable, is important. And like you said, John, he's not the most athletic, but the dude's hands are true, and he's strong with the ball in his hands. So I do think he could be a good addition. I agree with you. I think a lot of the reason why we're not talking about him is because of, I think people are cautiously optimistic because of the injuries and all that stuff. And then obviously dealing with, and people probably got a little bit of PTSD in that position. because of what happened with Tank Dell as well. So I think people are kind of just waiting to see. And another thing, I don't think a lot of what he brings is you gonna see it. Like, I think you're gonna see it on the field, but I mean, just as a leader and as being somebody, again, that can translate the playbook, that understands these motions. You asking these, because when I hear shifts in motions and all that stuff, beautiful thing. Who don't get false starts. You gotta teach why these young wide receivers poise and things like that as well. So I think we're gonna see his impact's not gonna be seen immediately as what he's doing right now. Hopefully we see it on the field too.
I'll start where you just left off, Iisha, and an excellent commentary and observation by you. Christian Kirk spoke to the media this week locally, and he said he does view himself, now that he's going into his 8th season at just 28 years of age, as a mentor. He talked about the things he learned from Larry Fitzgerald and D-Hop, his days in Arizona. Obviously, his success in Jacksonville was short-lived, just one 1,000-yard season in 2022 in that second year, I do believe. And he came about 18 yards shy in 2021. The injuries, however, the last 2 seasons are a big deal.
Yeah.
But he's missed 14 games in the regular season the past 2 years, missing 9 in 2024. In 2023, he had the abdominal core injury. In 2024, he had the broken collarbone. Good news, not lower extremity injuries, which is where the wide receiver, or the hand, where the wide receiver makes his money. John, also excellent observation by you. His catch rate percentage is hovering somewhere in the low to mid 50s. For a wide receiver that's a former second-round pick out of the SEC and Texas A&M, that catch rate should be significantly higher than that. Now, he is playing in Arizona. They haven't been they've been one of the more debunked franchises or defunct franchises in the league. Things got a little bit better in Jacksonville, that playoff run that they went on.
But he's playing with another bum quarterback, let's be honest.
Oh, wow. Oh, Texas fans like that.
Trevor Lawrence is hot trash. I just gonna keep saying it.
Barnacles.
So the 2 playoff games that he did play with Trevor Lawrence, what did he do here? 2 touchdowns in the postseason in 2023, including season high 78 yards in one of those games. Look, the bottom line is Christian Kirk. If you're talking about a wide receiver 2, somebody opposite of Nico, I am concerned. It's not just the injury history. And somebody brought this up in our last show on Tuesday when I was going back and forth and we were debating ad nauseum the conversation about Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. I'm like, look, man, I can't count on Christian Kirk to be there. If you look at not just the fact that he's missed those 14 games over the last 2 seasons, look at when players miss games. He missed half the year in 2024, and he missed the entire month of, it was just after, so 3 weeks in December and the entire month of January in the 2023 season. So what does that tell me? As he's getting older, he's missing the second halves of seasons. Well, that's money time. That's when you're trying to solidify playoff position. I can't bet my house that he's going to be there. And when you add the number 1 guy, Nico Collins, has also missed games, it gives me some cause to pause that our top 2 wide receiving options are guys that have missed games. I'll leave you
really quick to that point, if you don't mind, really quick saying to that point. What I do think is funny is the 2 guys that they brought in, the rookies, mirror those vets games. So
I was about to say Jalen Noel was that this threshold to me is like, or maybe a little above, but without the injury.
Christian Kirk is a slot receiver. That's what he is. That's where he excels. Now, Mechie has lined up primarily in the slot. People see Tank Dell's stature and they immediately go slot receiver. That's not where Tank Dell lined up in Bobby Slowick's offense the majority of the time. So you're right in that Jalen Noel can line up in the slot, and that's primarily where I think he would excel. And then Higgins would be somebody on the outside. But I would be remiss if I didn't paint this picture now. You lose Steph Diggs from a year ago, and you also lose Robert Woods, a.k.a. Bobby Trees. Now, he's still in the league. And if you remember, John, you remember this, how many times we were in that press box And Robert Woods saved their keister on multiple times. He made some plays, whether it be for a crucial first down.
Third down killer.
What'd you say, John?
No, he's a third down killer, especially 23 that year. He was good for Houston on third downs.
So you lose two veterans in Steph Diggs, however short amount of time they did have him, and Robert Woods, and now you ask an oft-injured at this point Christian Kirk and two rookies from the Big 12 and Iowa State to come in, and we're hanging our playoff hopes on those individuals. So do we talk about Christian Kirk enough? No. But all of that talk isn't positive. And MC, I'll come to you and remind you, Jacksonville traded this man in the division. Mm-hmm. Typically, the team that's dealing you knows more about the player than the team that is inheriting him. The disrespect, the trade a receiver in the division, I can't ignore that.
Well,
no fight there for me. I think if he is healthy, though, Christian Kirk has traditionally been a good red zone threat for the teams he's been on. So that's a positive for the Houston Texans. But
his one touchdown in 2024 or his three touchdowns in 2023?
He was playing with a bad quarterback, with a bad team,
Michael is
and a
not
bad franchise. Like, literally, we do all this talk about the Cleveland Browns. The Jacksonville Jaguars might be the biggest joke of a franchise in the league. It's not even close. And they're going to be a joke again because they've hired a high school counselor as a head coach and a 12-year-old as their new GM. They're going to be hot garbage again.
Michael, that's that radio and you coming out.
They're terrible. I don't like them. I don't like their crazy, weird fans on the internet that for some reason think they're good. They stink. They've never been good.
No, I do think there is like a weird lack of accountability for Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence is a solid quarterback. He's had his injuries here late. I think
he's like the 28th best quarterback in the league.
Wow. Whoa. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, you're going too far, Michael. You're going too far.
Am I?
You know what? Let's let Michael get his off. Go ahead.
Let it out, Michael.
Talk about your op, Mike.
Now look,
don't worry about the Texas.
In part, it's my wife who went to Alabama who hated Clemson because they beat Alabama all the time. She's just ruined me forever. So I don't like.
There was something deeper there.
Is somebody to get him a haircut while we're at it? Come on.
How about Texans Tangents is asking us to bring up a couple people that we haven't before we wrap up this part of the wide receiver conversation. Justin Watson comes over from Kansas City. I think he was nicked up as well. I have not done a deep dive on Justin Watson's game. It's tough to say when anybody comes from Kansas City because Mahomes and Andy Reid just make you so much better than what you probably are. You play over your skis. And then Braxton Berrios, he tore the ACL. It looks like he's on track from the last report I saw to be ready to go for training camp. I see him more in a kick return role, but he could be the sixth receiver and on a given lineup and give you something.
They have
Texans.
way too many
I'll
receivers,
study
by the way.
Watson for you. Sorry, I'll study Watson for you and let you know.
Justin
Watson talk next time on Tuesday.
There you go.
Watson talk Tuesday.
That and probably some more Jaden Higgins. But speaking of the rookies, let's talk about the rookies. And let's talk about anybody. I'm gonna give you the rules here in just a second on the Locked on Texans Squad Show. It's our final segment of the Locked on Texans Squad Show here on a Friday evening. Thank you for stopping by. If you are live, whether you're watching later on, wherever it is, you guys filtering in and out. Make sure that you listen to this show as well. Anywhere that you get your podcast, search for Locked on Texans, where you can also find John on a daily basis talking all things Texans all the time. And guess what? John's been doing, we talked about this the other day, the Rookie Diaries. Make sure you're checking out John's Rookie Diaries. Obviously, the Texans did have a lot of draft picks. They did not have a first-round draft pick. They had 2 picks outside of the first round. But they took a lot of players, at positions of need and also at positions maybe that you weren't expecting. Let's talk about this with the rookies this season. Who is the most important rookie to this team in 2025? And the rule for this conversation is, because we've talked so much about him, you can't say Jaden Higgins because we all know how important he actually is. Who's the next most important rookie to their success in 2025? It's open. Whoever wants to go.
I think it could end up being Ariante Ursary. I'll be curious to see how much of the season surpasses before he able to crack in there. Does Cam Robinson play terrible as he did a year ago when he got benched and traded? Does he get that left tackle spot? Miko told us coming into OTAs and out of rookie minicamp that he is a tackle. So I do not expect to see Ursery at guard. Is it the left tackle, though? How does Blake Fisher develop in year 2? Again, here's looking at you, Cole Popovich and Nick Caley. Nick Caley, the new OC, is ultimately responsible for that O-line play. How quickly can Ursery get on the football field at one of those 2 tackle spots? If he doesn't, that means the second-round pick in Blake Fisher that you traded up for and the guaranteed money that you're giving Cam Robinson were both worth it.
We cannot say Jaden Higgins.
So you cannot say Jaden Higgins because he's too obvious of a choice.
As of right now, Ariante Ursery, he is not projected to start this year. So he's out for me. Christian Kirk, we just talked about Christian Kirk and some of the other guys.
You said rookie, correct?
Yeah, rookie. So I'm not. So when I look at Jalen Noel, I don't know. But as of right now, with the retiring of Ronald Darby, I think Jalen Smith is extremely important to the success of this team. Obviously, from a special teams perspective, but that was a concern of mine last year with the cornerback depth. It was a concern of mine with Ronald Darby. So now without him, I've seen Tremont Smith, and I know what he looks like outside. Miles Bryant is going to be on the inside. He's a slot, cornerback.
Yeah.
Can they convert Smith to playing outside? A lot of Smith and what he does well reminds me of Jalen Petrie and what he does well. So that's why it's a concern, but that's also why it's important because Dino Vasso, one of the better cornerback coaches in the NFL, one of my favorite coaches for the Houston Texans, he will have his hands full. Smith is important, and I'm not going to gloss over it until Houston upgrades that position.
Iisha?
Well, I'm going to go with at first I was thinking about going with Jalen Noel, but then I was like, no, because there's so many guys like Michi and Berrios and those guys that not that they would be better, but if they had to step in, if he wasn't able to do this play the slot would be different. But for me, I'm going to go with Woody Marks for all the reasons we talked about earlier in the show. Is if he is able to show that he can be a good runner, especially going downhill, and then also have that sprinkle of receiving capability that you guys have talked about. He solidified. Like you guys mentioned, Joe Mixon getting a little long in the tooth. You mentioned Dameon Pierce. We're not sure. Hopefully. But if you can even if that's your 2-back set and you're able to sprinkle him in there and line them up in different places and just drag linebackers out of there, have them cover him in coverage, I think that he can make a difference with this offense. So, yeah, it's so crazy that y'all don't have – it feels like y'all don't have that many rookies. Like the Texans don't have a lot of rookies. I mean, you do have rookies, but then you don't have rookies. But then
Jaden is probably the biggest one.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing is that this is a tough team to crack as a rookie, right? Like we talked about earlier.
The defensive side, like – you how you gonna get in there, and that is a good problem to have, like you gentlemen were saying. But from everything that Stan said earlier, and then the conversation of the run game and kind of what you envision from the run game, it sounds like Woody, hopefully we're trying to see if he can do a little bit of both. And
I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, and if he's the sprinkle on top of Mixon and Dameon Pierce, I think that's a good back system.
I think you all did this wrong, by the way.
What we do?
It's clearly Graham Mertz because CJ Stroud's he's actually dead. They haven't told us.
Oh yeah, Houston they could use Graham Mertz for the Texans tush push.
Well, and Graham is hurt right now. He's rehabbing.
Oh damn, he's dead too. They're all dead.
Can I add something else real quick while we're talking about receivers? You said we couldn't add Higgins. I just wanted to bring this point up, and we may kick this off on another show. But this thought, I heard a lot of the local media mentioning the size of Nico Collins standing next to Jaden Higgins and, having in this city, you say Twin Towers, and it goes back to the days of the Rockets with Hakeem and Ralph Sampson, so to speak. Can I tell you how much that does not interest me at all? Like,
It doesn't interest you to have two big receivers?
I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, my hometown, where I covered Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. And because Cam had hurt that ankle in Auburn, going all the way back to that national championship and Heisman Trophy season, his mechanics got worse and worse and worse because of his feet. So his balls sailed over receivers' heads. So the thought was, the then general manager, Marty Hurney, let's go out and draft Kelvin Benjamin in the first round out of Florida State, a national champion in the ACC. They then, a year or two later, they went and got Devin Funchess. Benjamin was about 6'5". Devin Funchess, formerly of the University of Michigan, just like Nico, he was about 6'4", some change. And I'm less concerned about doing all this cute stuff, playing vertically. I'm more concerned about the complementary route combinations and the timing and precision in running the routes. So the dimensions miss me with, they look like they could play basketball. That's great. Jalen Green is over there playing basketball when he's not dating, going on dates with Drea. I need dudes out there on the football field that can run the bang gate or the scissors concept, or you can run the sluggo concept, and let's catch the damn football and move the chains forward. So I just needed to get that off my chest about having two basketball receivers. Give a damn. CJ, you are what? Ball placement specialist? Place the ball where it's supposed to go. Whether he's 6'4" or 5'4", let's go win some games.
It's not going to be CJ. Remember, don't forget, it's going to be Graham Mertz.
Let's not gloss over Davis Mills, please. And this is for the Mills Mafia.
I'm just saying this because Mills got benched once for Case Keenum.
He did.
Yeah. He got jumped on the depth chart by Case Keenum, who can't throw the ball.
I do want to ask you guys, and this is just, brief, like for each one of you guys, what should be a specific goal for the Houston Texans offense this year?
A specific
just one
goal?
thing. Just one. Like if they got things that they want to absolutely be able to do, in your mind, what should that one thing be?
I think it's easy. I think it's top 10 in scoring. I think you want to be one of those teams. You want to be a Super Bowl contender like they imagine they're going to be. You got to be top 10 in scoring.
Top 10.
For me, I think it would be to capitalize off of turnovers. You know that this Texas defense is going to play physical. They're going to turn the ball over. This offense, if you're not dynamic in the way that you maybe are wanting to be, even so, capitalize off of when your defense works for you. If you get a short field, go get it. If you already know that you guys are in a place where this running game's trying to get going, offensive line trying to find a blend, when you get the opportunity to get 3 points, go get them. So that's going to be mine with them.
I'll give you two. Let's not be second in the NFL and getting our quarterback sacked, let alone second in pressures and hurries. The other one is, can the defense stop letting the ball go over your head, Jimmy Ward?
No, I don't think we're going to see
the defense surrender. Let's be clear. Let's quantify this now.
You're right.
The defense gave up entirely too many big plays. I'll give you the Indianapolis Colts game. It happened the first half of the season. The ball kept going over their head. And I'm talking about giving up chunks, even in the last game, in the playoff game versus Kansas City. They're trying to run that quarters coverage, which is just a version of cover two. And lo and behold, there's Travis Kelce killing them for 12 to 13 yards a pop in the middle of the field. Can we stop giving up first downs every time a receiver catches the ball or a touchdown? Thank you. I really appreciate that.
John, what's yours?
Yeah, what's yours, John?
It's a combination of all of y'all's.
Oh, damn.
You see how
John's
easy that was?
John wants everything at once.
You see how easy that was? No, honestly, man, listen here. Nothing is going to move without the final five getting it done. So I above all, man, like the complaints about CJ Stroud and his shoulder and that whole storyline, none of that matters to me. I mean, it matters, but what matters to me the most, what I am eager to see is that hashtag final five, that offensive line from left to right, because if they get it right, they look like geniuses for trading Larry Tunsil and bringing in Thomas and Ingram and everything that they've done with Cole Poppins. But if they get it wrong and they can't block or the damn for CJ and they can't move a mountain for Joe Mixon or whoever's back there, then they are going to get killed. Rightfully so. And so it's all about that offensive line for me. It is literally all about the
Sideline Sarah has asked the prediction for the starting five. I think on the offensive line, I think we all in agreement. Cam Robinson at left tackle,
Yes.
Laken Tomlinson at left guard.
Yes.
They've been running out this Jake Andrews at
I was
center.
about to say,
I'm in agreement. I say Jake Andrews.
It is absurd that Jake Andrews is out there over Jared Patterson, but then right guard is going to be Titus, and then the right tackle looks to be Blake Fisher.
And
maybe
I don't know how much I'm sold on
maybe
Blake
not.
Fisher right now.
Huh?
No, I'm not sure how much I'm sold on Blake Fisher starting right now.
I know,
but
like,
it always gonna change in the past.
I know, like his feet.
Who?
I don't like his feet.
You don't like Blake Fisher's feet?
Huh? What you say? I didn't say that.
Blake Fisher's feet.
Oh, we heard you, and they heard you on the live. And so this is in the.
I'm going. I got more game. I got more games to watch.
MOC. Next time, I don't want to send people into the weekend in a frenzy, but next time we got to talk about this smoke and mirror defense. They look good. What's the number one measure of a defense? Number one, the number one stat that
was points per game allowed.
Huh?
Points per game allowed.
Points per game allowed. They were average.
Okay.
Got to be better.
They were average. Hey, offense. Hey,
they on the field all day.
Bobby. Hey, y'all. Chris Rawson, please, can y'all just let us?
I was about to say, now we gotta be. I don't know.
Can y'all score 6 more points?
Please.
Yeah.
Please, brother. Please, brother. Please.
I can live with the defense giving up 20 a game. Just saying. That's something we have to talk about here in the future.
Yeah,
you guys got any final parting shots for the show tonight?
I just gave mine.
All right, John.
Let's all have a great weekend. I'm off on Monday, so just I'm gonna be great. It's graduation season, so let's all have a great weekend, Texan fans, and check out the Locked On Texan podcast.
Iisha,
mini camp coming. Gonna get a little bit more information. The intensity goes up a little bit, and I'm excited about that. Even though football's not really here, it's kind of here, it's not, and then we gotta go. So,
mini camp Tuesday and Wednesday next week, live from NRG and the Houston Methodist Training Center.
Just happens that we'll be doing a show on Tuesday at 6 p.m.
Will CJ Stroud be throwing?
Or will he speak? Can we hear from him? Words.
No.
That would be great. Put him in front of the microphone and let's just hear it directly from him so we can either think it's a thing or shut up about it. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah,
we will see. We will see on Tuesday. So, again, join us Tuesday, 6 p.m. right here, same channel, same time. We'll be with you live for the Locked On Texans Squad Show. As John said, everybody have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Tuesday.